Let me ask you a question, Jonathan. If you could give one piece of advice to any startup or early stage company out there as it relates to what we're talking about today, what would that advice be?
Yeah, so the thing that I think is the most important is keeping candidates in the loop. Like, don't ever
Yes.
allow them to wonder where they are in the process, because as humans, what are we going to do? We're going to fill the silence in with the most negative thoughts possible. Yeah, and we're going to, as candidates, as human beings, we're going to, just sort of move on, like, mentally. And I don't want that to happen for a top candidate. So I want to give them, and this is advice that I would give to anybody else, like starting up a process, is I want to have mechanisms, systems, whatever you want to call them, in place so that that person knows where they are every step of the way. If I'm reviewing their application, they get a notification for that. If I'm getting ready to interview them, they get a notification. Afterwards, when we're looking over the feedback, they get a notification for that too. And most job seekers, remember, like, I spoke to hundreds of job seekers in the last year alone. Most job seekers simply want closure. They
Yes.
don't need detailed feedback. They don't need any of that stuff. They just want to know, like, can I move on with my life? Like, am I rejected or are we moving forward? That's it. And, the icing on the cake is if you add feedback and stuff too, but that's not necessary. The not getting any sort of feedback at all, like not getting any sort of closure, is extremely painful. And most job seekers say, like, I would rather be rejected than be ghosted.
I,
So
I,
that would be my key piece of, advice.
I love that. And I'll take it back to the top talent piece. So, one of the things that I tell recruiters in my company, recruiters that I'm mentoring and managing, and hiring managers that I'm training is that number one, top talent always has options. But number two, they've always got multiple things going on. So, when in the beginning, you're one of a dozen opportunities they're looking at, the probability of them mixing up facts between companies is high because there's a bunch of you. As they move through the process, they become more emotionally involved and they become more learned about your specific company and opportunity. And as they become more emotionally involved and more learned about your specific situation, they become more invested. So the further along you go, the closer to the offer stage you get, the more focused they are on you and one or two other opportunities. And the more likely they are to have a disproportionately negative response if they feel jilted by you. And rightfully so, because they've worked through, in my opinion, a usually ridiculously long interview process to get there. So the more you offer concise, meaningful updates and feedback, like Jonathan described, the less likely you are to have that outburst. But on the positive side, the higher your opportunity rises in their eyes. When you get to offer stage, don't make the mistake of assuming that you're the only game in town.
That's
There's
right.
probably at least one more, maybe two or three. And that selection process will largely be biased by what they just experienced with you. So if they got jerked around for 2 months to get to this point, they're far likely to select you than they are a company that was smooth, because they're going to say to themselves, if you can't even handle the process of selecting a person, what's it going to be like when I'm working there and I've got a problem and I need help with it?
The last thing I'll say to that, and I think you said it wonderfully, is the time to offer is super important. Like, from
100%.
the moment they've had that final interview to the moment they either get rejected or get an offer, that has to be quick. Because, to your point, if they're interviewing at multiple places, the person that the company that gives the offer quickest will win.
Yes. Or at least have the strongest chance of a win for sure.